Hello, everybody, and welcome here to our program. I'm your host, Zach Ritchie, and today we have we've set out the business bat signal, and we have received a response from an affiliate of ours, someone who absolutely prides himself on being the learning tree for so many different aspects of business and real estate options. The official CEO of No Flipping Excuses, the one and only Jason Lucchesi. Jason, thank you so much for joining us here. I really appreciate it.
Hey, I appreciate you having me on the show, Zach. Super excited to just share with your folks, with your community. I love what you guys are doing over at Fund and Grow.
Oh, thank you.
And yeah, super excited that you invited me to be part of the show here.
Perfect. So for anyone who's not aware, No Flipping Excuses is really just a spectacular learning platform on a lot of different options, a lot of different, I would say, outside of the norm options for things like real estate investing, really what to do as a business owner. But before we get to that and how great that is, I really want to take a moment here, Jason, to talk about you as a business owner. So many of our listeners, so many of members of our community are just starting out in business, and it seems so many times like it's just an impossible to climb mountain, and you are an absolute success story. So talk a little bit about your origin story as a business owner.
Yeah, mine's kind of unusual. I definitely didn't go down the path that, a lot of people think we all go down, right?
All right.
So I'll just be real quick in the beginning, and then I'll kind of tell folks, how it kind of got started. So 2002, just was getting out of high school and didn't want to go to college. It wasn't really for me. I barely graduated high school as it was. And I got into selling Cutco knives. My family,
the start of many a successful salesperson, the start for many.
Yeah. And I did well. I think, in my first 45 days or so, I hit pretty much every milestone, got all of the free knives. I still have them to this day, by the way. And
if they're not in a shadow box above your desk, just to really remind you of where you came from.
No, I use them. I've been using them for 20 plus years now. Those things are still sharp. I could probably still go out and sell them. So
I was just gonna say, where's our Cutco plug now? We need we need that affiliate program.
Exactly, man. Those knives are not cheap. So after that, after Cutco, I was there just for a little bit. Got into mortgages. Was in the mortgage industry until late 07. So I was in it when we got the really bad news in fall of 07, saw the writing on the wall, and decided to leave. I was there for a really long time, did really well, and I just saw a lot of things not going in the direction that I wanted. I lost a huge amount of money on my retirement plan because I was doing what everybody said I should be doing, right? Hey, put in X amount in your 401k and you'll be able to retire at a young age. And our goofy CEO, Angelo Mazzillo, decided to say some not so good things. And our stock went from $43 to $12 overnight. And I was putting 40% of my checks into my 401k. So that was not fun. So decided to leave and didn't have much money. I just got married at that time. My wife at that time was pregnant with our first son, didn't have much money. We moved back here to Indiana from New Jersey, was only in New Jersey for a little bit, and decided to do real estate because at this time, nobody was hiring much unless you had a college degree, which I didn't have. I tried going to many sales places, even though I was, a top person at Countrywide, they didn't want to hire me. The only places I could get any type of interviews at were 100% commission-based jobs. So I just decided to go all in on myself. And boy, it was brutal.
I would imagine.
Steve Harvey says, hey, you're going to jump off the cliff and hey, your parachute may not open. You might be, hitting the side of the cliff on your way down, and it might open right at the very very bottom of the cliff. And that was
true.
No idea that it was going to open. I thought, hey, I'm going to fall flat on my face. I just jumped off this 10,000 foot cliff and I have no idea if the parachute's going to open. And it did. but it took a long time. Lots of grinding, lots of working hard, and just sleepless nights. I was 40, 50 grand in credit card debt and had about, I was on unemployment checks at that time. So unemployment to unemployment check. And it was brutal. So I tell a lot of people, like, hey, you might feel like your back is up against the wall, but for me, I really felt like I was in the drywall. I wasn't even up against the wall. I was in the wall. I was through the studs.
Yeah,
all
really.
Yeah, and so it was tough,
Yeah.
right? I had no idea what I wanted to do. I bought all these training programs, like a lot of people do, and I had them at that time. They were home study programs. They came in the mail. And I remember sitting on my floor in my office being like, and I was in a circle. It was like a little seance. And I had all these home study courses around me. And I'm just like, where do I start? Where do I start? The only thing that was
trying to conjure up some living capital. That's what that seance was.
Exactly. I think I was missing the candles. So that's why.
True. That was, yeah. Oh.
So that didn't work. So I started hitting some strides with probate like investing, so finding people that need help. They just lost a loved one. They have no idea what to do with the property. That was where I would kind of come in and help. And then I really hit my stride when it came to short sales. That was really big back in early 08 until about 2012. And just, I felt like that was the thing. I knew mortgages. I knew like, hey, the bank's probably going to want to negotiate on this. This doesn't look good on their books. So I came in and started negotiating from that way. And it really turned out to be like, the thing that I guess came to fruition, but I didn't have the money for that last course. I actually bummed the money from a friend. And, the story goes, I had to bum that last $397 to afford a training program. And that training program really came and made things happen. I think, and I became friends with the person after that the training, from the training program. And it turned out pretty good. So now I'm here, super, super blessed, super thankful. And, just lots of hard work in the beginning. And I'll tell you, Zach, one of the things where I think a lot of people get lost on this journey, and I was there, and I tell a lot of our students this nowadays, is when you go from corporate America having structure, standard operating procedure videos, you go to this structure, right? Hey, I'm going to check in at 9, I'm going to leave at 5 or 6, and then you're all by yourself. It's like, what do you do? I think the big thing that kind of triggered for me was finally just putting together my own schedule and holding myself accountable. And I think a lot of people get lost in that, Zach. You guys might feel that too on your side, where they just have no idea where to go. Like, how do I even start? And the big thing is clearing off your schedule, putting time blocks in place. Like, I do that for working out. Like, I'll put on my calendar, working out from 10:30 to 11:30, making calls from this time, or prospecting for this, or just making sure that you have that on your calendar and really sticking to it. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I think one of the great things about your story is really seeing opportunity and using the skills that you had developed up to that point to really pivot in that direction, because you already had the understanding of mortgages. So therefore, when real estate did finally become the cliff, as you said, you were already coming into this with a skill set. Even though you still had to grind, it was still brutal. You were able to build that discipline in yourself. And I think that's what you're talking about with like the blocking out time and things like that. It really is about discipline. It's that almost, not only is it so much opportunity, but sometimes, when you are that first time business owner, there's just so many options all hitting you at once, and it can be paralyzing. And so I think really developing that discipline is the key.
Yeah, you go through a lot of cycles in that beginning part when you're becoming an entrepreneur. There's a lot of fear that sets in, like, can I do this? A lot of self belief, like, I would say you've got a lot of disbelieving parts in your body at that point, especially the mind plays some crazy games. And I'll tell you, one of the things and I'll tell your audience right now, sorry for brushing over this, but I'll go back to it. When I was just getting started with short sales, I had no idea, folks, what I was even doing. But I took the study program, listened to the CDs, went through the training manual probably twice, and I'm not a good reader at all. If you guys ever see me sitting down reading, something's going on with me. There might be something wrong. I have to listen to everything.
No, audiobooks are incredible. So yeah, no. I see what you mean.
Audiobooks, probably almost a better invention than sliced bread, in my opinion. So
that's a hot take. All right.
That is, especially for people like me. I've met some other people that like, yeah, dude, I can't sit down either. Like if I'm sitting down, it's more than likely for a reason why I'm trying to go to bed. Sitting down and reading a book, because it'll put me right to sleep. I don't know what it is. It's like a Xanax that you can get over the counter. So it works. But when I went through the home study program, Zach, twice, and I'm like, I can't wait any longer. I would love to go through it multiple times, but then you get that engineer mindset, analysis paralysis. You could only read things so many times before you could go out there and actually start seeing results. So I remember talking to a real estate agent, and I'm like, hey, I'm an investor. I could come in and help you with some of your short sales. So I completely winged the whole entire conversation. I invited this agent out to lunch, which I didn't have the money to take the person out. So I was so thankful that the credit card went through, or else I would have looked really bad.
Yeah, that would have undercut the pitch a little bit if it's like, no, I can really help. Oh, that's declined. Well, how are y'all washing dishes?
That wouldn't have been a good one, Zach. I'll tell you, I had that pop up a few times. And it was probably one of the scariest things. It's really embarrassing. You don't have much money and you want to try and meet this person a little bit so they get to know you and feel comfortable, and they want to do business with you. So lo and behold, we end up getting I end up getting 3 deals under contract from that first meeting, close on one of them relatively pretty quick, get myself out of a big hole with a $26,000 profit check. And then this is where it started turning really good. That agent was with Keller Williams, and she was so impressed with how I did that deal that she invited me to come talk to the whole entire Keller Williams Indianapolis branch. So there was I remember I come into this room, there's 100 agents. I'm shaking at the knees. I'm like, oh crap. What's going on here? So I just ended up sitting at the front doing my presentation because my knees, I felt like they were going to buckle from me talking. And I get up there, talk. At the end of it, I've got 12 agents. They're like, hey, can you help us? And that's kind of long story short. That's how I started filling up the pipeline. I didn't have much money for a marketing budget. So I just went to agents and I was like, hey, I'm really good at this. I can help you with this. Because I know short sales, you don't want to be on the phone with banks. I actually like doing that. So I can help you. I could put in an offer right here, right now, and we could do this, this, and this. And they ended up having me talk to their legal counsel, and the legal counsel just wanted to make sure that everything was above the word, which it was.
Yeah, that's pretty standard.
Yeah. And they just were like, oh man, this guy's coming in. He could do all these amazing things. We just want to make sure it's above board. And it was. So long story short, that's how I got started. That's how I was starting to make money as an entrepreneur. And then it just kind of started working into other avenues down the road. And I think a lot of people too, they just need to focus on one thing at a time. One thing is look at what I just shared. I was sitting on the floor, literally probably 10, 12 home study programs, $50,000, $60,000 in debt. And all it took was one of them, one program. So figure out a program, folks, that you really feel like it's your passion, not just because of somebody pitching something on a webinar. Because I'll tell you, there are so many good educators out there. Zach, you know a lot of them too. A lot of them have great training programs. But if it doesn't resonate with you and you feel 100% passion and convicted to go out there and do it, you're not going to be successful with it. It might be something that you do down the road. but
Right.
do something that you feel passionate about.
Excellent. And I gotta say, you are the king of yes anding, because the fact that you went from, I'm gonna wing it and hopefully power through this lunch meeting to, yeah, I'll give the big Glenn Ross speech in front of the entire Keller Williams group of this state. That's a big jump.
It was nerve wracking. And literally it brought back things from junior year in high school. I remember I had to deliver a presentation in front of the class, and my knees started buckling. I'm like, oh crap. And I remember my teacher, my football coach, gave me a chair to sit down in, and it was flashing back. I was having PTSD from junior year in high school. So it was, a lot of people probably would have gotten freaked out and left, but I'm like, you know what? I've got a kid now. Barely any money in the bank. I got to get this to work. Got to get it to work. There was no plan B. There was only plan A. I was going to screw up plan A really, really bad to where I was going to make it work. No plan B.
Well, and I mean, that's, you mentioned, the metaphor of jumping off the cliff. I feel like that was another one right there. It was like, the opportunity's there, and you have to make those choices to be bold. And that's basically what you did. Now, of course, in your case, you felt like you had no other option. But when it came time to, to pay the check, as it were, you were there. You were there, and you were standing tall. So kudos to you and your ability to, really rise to the occasion there. Now, let's talk a little bit about, so that's the entrepreneurial journey here. Let's talk a little bit about No Flipping Excuses, which, I mean, A, great name, but also B, kind of your lifestyle here, kind of your story here, was there was no excuses to get you to where you needed to be. But tell me a little bit about No Flipping Excuses to bring everybody up to speed here.
Yeah. So No Flipping Excuses came to light when there was a bad business breakup back in like 2015, 2016. And I went through like a rebranding phase. I didn't want the company to just be all about me. I wanted it to be more of like something that a lot of people could resonate with. And it truly, No Flipping Excuses is that. You have to have that mindset of just coming in and not having no flipping excuses moving forward in your business. Now, I could have went obviously with another word to go with flipping, but we'll leave the show PG-13. Well, I don't know, PG-13. I think they're dropping.
You get one. Yeah, PG-13. You get one.
Yeah.
We'll save it for the very end.
We'll leave it at PG for now, because I don't know what the rating is of your show, Zach. So No Flipping Excuses is a mindset, and it also is about giving back. Some of the things that we've done with No Flipping Excuses is help people that are wheelchair bound will go into their properties and make the transitions in their house seamless to where they're in a power chair. They can go around properly in the house and not be confined to one area. We'll go through a remodel of the house. Like, we've done ramps for people, like nice ramps, not just these little metal ramps that, don't last long. We'll come in, remodel the house. Like a few houses we've done, we've got new furnaces, new hot water tanks, remodeled a lot of the interior of the home, just so that these people could have a peace of life, and not feeling confined to just one bed and one bedroom, and just trying to help them out as best as possible. So that's also what we do. We also try and help out veterans as well. We've done really well in business, and we're all about giving back and helping the community, not just here in Indy, but across the globe, because it's not just here, it's everywhere where people need help. And it's not who's president or who's not president. These are people. So we want to try and help out as many people as possible.
Well, and I think it goes back to what you mentioned in some of your origin story about like getting started with like probates. It's one of those cases where it's so not to drag the show down, but my family and I have dealt with some loss recently, and that's exactly it. There's so much going on that when it comes to things like, well, what do you do with mom's house now, or whatever the case is, it's like those are just things that are on a list of 10,000 other things that you never thought you'd have to worry about or have to put, the pieces together on. So like probates, like you said, helping, disabled homeowners or veterans. These are things that you don't really think about when there's 10,000 other things going on, but are so vitally important. And so, to have a company really looking to reach out for that is tremendous, in my opinion.
Yeah, man. It's rewarding too, right? Like we can go out there and serve our folks and really help them in a way that not a lot of people are doing. So it's rewarding from that aspect too. And just having that to where you don't think about it and you just do, that's the part that we're all about with No Flipping Excuses. Like we have 3 veterans on our team. And we've got some folks that just, we really feel like, we could make a difference. It's just one person at a time that's making a difference in somebody's life.
So obviously we've been talking a lot about learning and sort of like, the lessons in being a business owner and things like that. Now, one thing you and I had talked about before recording here is really kind of sitting on the learning tree of different ways of looking at, like, let's say real estate, for example. So, for Fund and Grow, when we're talking to business owners about real estate and wanting to invest and things like that, ours is very black and white. Ours is very much like, well, we can connect you to funding opportunities, and then you can take those opportunities and, you could, rehab a property or invest in a property. But it's all very black and white for us because that's not our specialty. Our specialty is funding. And so I know for No Flipping Excuses, there's a lot more, and I mean you in general, there's a lot more opportunities out there than just the straightforward, like, hey, I'm just going to invest in this and that's it. Like, for instance, you had mentioned tax delinquency as like a way of getting in to bridge that gap for somebody, and pre-foreclosure. And now I'm familiar a little bit with, the foreclosure sort of turning that into a deal sort of idea, but the pre-foreclosure was news to me. So talk a little bit about some of these alternative ways of getting into real estate for people who maybe have a little bit of money put together, but don't really know where that first step is.
Yeah, absolutely. So when it comes to tax delinquent properties, especially let's just keep it simple. Indianapolis, that's where I'm from. There's what's called a 2-year redemption period. So when somebody gets late on their Properties Act with their taxes, what happens is they have, actually, I'm sorry, 1-year redemption period in the state. We've got a lot going on, and I was just in trenches with somebody else's market, but 1-year redemption period, which means, let's just say they owe $4,000. The state is giving them 1 year to pay that back, or else it gets sold. And what happens is somebody will come in, an investor will go to what's called a tax sale auction. They'll bid on the property and they will become the winning bidder. Now, the property owner never finds out who this person is. That person bought the taxes and then some, whatever the county was having it auctioned off at. Let's just call it $50,000. The property owner still owes $4,000 regardless. They don't owe the investor anything. Just the investor bought the property for that amount through the county. And what happens is if that property goes the full year and it doesn't get redeemed, that property owner gets kicked out of the property.
Wow.
Most of the properties that we're dealing with, they're what's called free and clear, meaning there's no other liens on the property besides the delinquent taxes. So they've been in this property for 20, 30 years, Zach, and they're going to lose the whole house because of $4,000 in taxes.
Right. Which, I mean, could happen to anybody, especially in the kind of economic climate we're in right now.
Exactly. And we have so many folks that have this problem. It's not just, a dozen, it's a lot. So what we try and do is we get to those people during the redemption phase to kind of share with them some options that they might not be aware of. We try and offer them a tax loan. We could buy the property and rent it back to them at a discount. They could sell us the property and we'll be able to help them from a moving expense standpoint. We'll find them a new place that they can afford and not have this problem come up again, hopefully. Anything within the short interim that would happen. So we try and do things like that to where we find them, and pretty much a lot of them have given up hope that we're just going to lose this property. And a lot of people that might be watching this like, well, why don't they just list it? Well, I'll tell you, most of these properties are in hoarder condition. They have not been updated in 20, 30 years. There's roofing problems, flooring problems, electrical problems, you name it. There's problems with the property. So
Yeah.
it's a difficult property to get listed on the retail market. So that's
Well,
why.
and not only that, but it's like, this is, like you said, this could be a lived-in house. This could be somebody's whole world for 30 years. And to just kind of suggest, like, I don't know, just sell it. Like, that's not as easier said than done. That's a situation where this could be somebody's whole world, and to just be like, I don't know, sell it, I guess. That's a lot to ask, especially on like, it's that in a year, get it ready, go. Like, become a real estate person in a year, go. Like, that's just not an option for a lot of people.
It's tough. It takes a lot of conversations with this person for them to arrive at our third option, which is just sell the property outright. We'll help you out with relocation expenses, moving expenses. We have to do a lot of talking with them. We try and get them approved through our funding department. And I know you guys have a funding department, but this is different. This is just strictly for tax loans. So we try and help them out that way. If they can't get approved for that, us purchasing the property and then renting it back to them, that's usually the next course that they do, because they want to stay in the property, right, Zach? And we can help them out by purchasing the property. They'll get infused with a lot of cash because the property's free and clear. And if their circumstances change, we'll put in the verbiage of the lease agreement to rent it from us, that they can have the option to purchase it back from us if they would like, at a discount. So they can do that as well. So we try and offer them options that the county is not offering them. And we just try and solve their problems, right? And the only way that we can do that is by listening to them to see what their problems are. And that's usually the three options that we use for there. We don't try and overcomplicate the process, but there's so many people. There's thousands of people per county across the country that are facing these problems where they feel like nobody else is helping them, because friends, family, they don't have that money. Sometimes they do, but most of the times they don't. It's a very small percent that can help them out from a financial standpoint. And if they can, Zach, it's a Band-Aid. It's not helping them long-term. They're going to ruin that relationship with the family member or friend because they're not going to be able to pay them back unless they sell the property.
Right. Very much so. And you know, it takes me back to, so our Fund and Grow got its start around 2008. So big market crash, big, real estate crash. And that's kind of where our, business credit sort of philosophy sort of blossomed from, out of necessity for business owners. And I feel like we're crawling towards that same kind of environment now. Maybe not as much of a crash necessarily, but in terms of that desperation and people needing help. And so, like you said, unfortunately, it's not an uncommon situation to find people in, that it's just something gets away from them. And like you said, there's a lot of options that are Band-Aid solutions, but nothing that's going to really be a long-term solution for them. Now, talk to me a little bit about, direct asset manager deals as well. I know that's something else that No Flipping Excuses helps with.
Yeah. One of the things that I needed to do when I was pivoting my business in 2012, because short sales were kind of drying up.
Yeah.
And I was trying to find deals direct from like banks and hedge funds and credit unions and private equity firms. And there was this data source at that time that I was trying to use, but I really wasn't having any success with it. So at this time, you got to remember, this platform wasn't really big for what I was using it for. So I had to get creative. And the platform, which a lot of your folks might know, is LinkedIn.
Right.
And I was using LinkedIn, and a lot of people back in 2012 were using LinkedIn for putting their resume out, trying to get a job. And I used it differently. I was trying to find asset managers. So I would go in to LinkedIn, and they've got like the little search bar in the upper left-hand corner. And I just typed in asset manager, right? And I clicked the little magnifying glass, and lo and behold, there was like a little over 1 million that popped up for the results. And I was like, what just happened here? Did I just strike gold?
Right.
Because I started looking on their profiles, Zach, and once I became connected with them, here's what I had access to: their direct phone number, their direct email address, the address of where they worked at, the website. And I was also connected with them now on LinkedIn. So 5 things to where I was able to connect with somebody directly at a bank. And for anybody that knows this, getting past the gatekeeper is the hardest part.
Right.
Imagine bypassing the gatekeeper and now just going directly to the source. So I not only was starting to figure out how to get direct to banks, hedge funds, and all of the other places to where everybody else was striking out, we started getting lists and lists of properties. Like, it was massive amounts of properties that we were getting to look at. And these were all off market, meaning they weren't available anywhere on the internet. Zillow, Redfin, MLS, nowhere. So we started getting access to all of these properties. And I was just getting overwhelmed with the amount of properties and the discounts that we were receiving. The discounts ranged at that time from anywhere from 40 to 60%. So it was pretty crazy. So we were getting stuff all over the country, not just here in Indiana. So I started telling my buddy who came out with the short sales course. I was like, hey man, I know you've got a big network. Here's my problem. He was like, wow, that's really a good problem to have. So he had me come on a webinar to his folks, and he had about 1,000 people that showed up, which was crazy numbers. And the feedback from all of those people after I showed them what I was doing was crazy. We got probably a couple hundred students from that first webinar. And then I started showing folks how I was doing it through a training program. And we all started cherry picking these properties. We started doing really well with being able to get direct deals. And now 2023, it's still working like a charm. Not a lot of people are going on LinkedIn and doing this. I've had a few people over the years kind of not ask me for permission to teach it how I did, but they've kind of come out with their own copycat courses over the years.
Yeah.
I guess it's flattery, right?
That's what they say. It's the sincerest form. Yeah.
But I've got the original stuff to show that hey, I was doing this way back a few years before anybody else was, and it turned out to be a really great thing for people that were either brand new in the business or veterans. The veterans obviously loved it because they needed access to inventory. And then brand new people loved it because they're like, oh, great. I don't need to spend thousands of dollars on leads and marketing. I could just do this with LinkedIn. And I showed people how to do it on LinkedIn with the basic account, which is free. Now, you could obviously do it with a paid version. You're going to see results faster.
Right.
But the basic free version is also working as well. And there's other titles too. You've got loan workout officer, Zach, portfolio manager, credit risk analysis. So there's other departments. It's not just asset manager, but it's a really great way. And since you brought it up just a moment ago, I do think the market's correcting. It's not going to be like 08 though.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have all these crazy arms that are going to be adjusting and people can't afford the new payment. I think it'll be different in a way to where people just over leveraged certain debts. So credit cards, automobile loans, that type of thing. And that's obviously going to make it a little bit harder for them to afford their mortgage. So, but a lot of people too are at like 3% mortgages. So it's going to be hard to do things from that standpoint. But I still think we're going to have some delinquency problems, and the asset manager strategy would be huge for people. I've had people, because I kind of took it off the market for a little bit,
right,
and just kept it for a private group of folks. But I have had so many people reach out to me here recently, like, hey, when are you going to relaunch that? And I have no plans of relaunching it anytime soon. Maybe I will if we get enough interest. But I'm bringing this up for your folks because it could really prove to be. Just go on LinkedIn. You can start having these conversations with folks and see if they're interested in liquidating some of their portfolio.
Yeah, excellent. So I'm going to ask you something here that we've been asking some of our guests, and if it doesn't go well, we can always cut this. But as someone like you said, you've obviously done tons of studying in over the years as an entrepreneur. If you had to recommend a particular audiobook, we'll say, to an entrepreneur, something that would help maybe motivate, maybe steer in a specific direction, what would you add to like any entrepreneur's library to really kind of get them on the right path?
So is it, you want me to just do one book, or?
Hey, if you want to list a shelf, you're more than welcome to, but I was only putting you on the hook for one.
So, dude, in all honesty, love the book called The Untethered Soul. Amazing book. It helps out from like a motivational, spiritual standpoint. It's nothing crazy from a religious standpoint.
Right.
But it's a really great book. Think and Grow Rich is always going to be one,
Of course.
that I absolutely love. I love the audio versions of these books, because the Think and Grow Rich one, there's clips of Napoleon Hill actually talking. So I love that. Let me pull up my own phone here, and there's some other ones that I really like. Obviously, other people that you're going to have on here are going to say like Rich Dad, Poor Dad. That's obviously, that's a good book. Let's see here. My library. So let's see. Yep. Told you The Untethered Soul. Oh, this is a good one. You ready?
Yeah.
Relentless, From Good to Great to Unstoppable by Tim Grover. Now, Tim Grover is the guy who trained Michael Jordan.
Oh, right.
Kobe Bryant. Good stuff. So if you feel like you need help from your negotiations or talking to people, Covert Persuasion, that's a good book. If you are not the best with your financials, kind of like me, where you need to hire some people, a book by Mike Michalowicz, Profit First, is really good. And I'll do one more for your folks. Let me get a good one here for you. So I think, there's some other good ones here, man. This is a good one. I'll go with this one. So Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. That's a good one too. So there you go. Those Excellent. Are all audio that's on my phone right now. I love
Excellent.
listening to audiobooks. Those are my recommendations.
Amazing. So before we get the plugs in and all that good stuff, one more thing I want to ask is, you've shared a lot of insights about your life and your journey and reaching out to others. Just sort of as a final piece here to sort of tie this all up, what's the best advice that you could give to somebody who's starting out as an entrepreneur? Maybe they're going in the same direction you are. Maybe they're doing a completely different industry. What's just general, something that all entrepreneurs should keep in mind as they're going down this journey?
Yeah. So this is a good one. So people that are listening, make sure you jot this down. Get out of your own way. It's always you standing in your own way of where you want to go. Like, we've got students right now that just get into analysis paralysis. They want everything to be perfect before they actually go out and take action. Take me, for example, when I was doing that initial stuff, when I was getting started, I had no idea what was going on, but I winged it as best as I could. Sometimes the best thing to do is fail as you're going forward. And you're going to catch yourself, I promise. But get out of your own way. So many people have an engineer mindset that they try and strive for perfection before they go out and take action. And next thing you know, you're going to be in your 70s and you'll be like, oh man, it only took me 20 years to go out and have this conversation with somebody. So don't wait. Please don't wait. Just go out and do it. And sometimes you might just need to watch a video like this, or you could go through and watch whatever you want, but you could go watch as many videos as you want on YouTube. And here's the thing. If you don't take the stuff that's being taught in those, you're not going to see any results. So again, get out of your own way. Promising results.
Yeah, I actually just heard a quote recently that perfection is the enemy of good. And I thought that was actually pretty interesting because, yeah, you're just going to get stuck in the mud if you're worrying about things being absolutely perfect first. Amazing advice. Thank you so much, Jason. So real quick, how do people get in touch with you? How do they track down No Flipping Excuses?
Yeah, so we just redid the site. So noflippingexcuses.com. Check us out. We've got tons of things on there for you to take a look at. We've got some educational stuff. We've got a YouTube channel. We'll have to have you guys on the show as well.
I would love to. Absolutely would love to.
We'd love to do that. Yeah, noflippingexcuses.com, Zach. Yeah, appreciate the opportunity of having me on here today.
Jason, it was an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and sharing your story with us here and the amazing book recommendations. We need to make like an Audible playlist or something like that we can get everybody into. But in any case, thank you so much, Jason Lucchesi, for showing up here on our show. Thank you to everyone for listening and participating. If you are an entrepreneur, business owner who wants some more information about what we've talked about here, or perhaps want to interact with the show more specifically, of course, let us know. For everybody here, I'm Zach Ritchie. Thank you so much for joining us here, and we'll see you in the next one.